right, welcome to another episode of the Behind the Fang podcast. I am your host, Roth Knightley Dark Raven, and I think we have a really, really good podcast for you this week. It's one that I've wanted to do since I started doing the podcast, and I'm really excited to have him on the show today. This man, I've known this man since before I was in Progeny, just because you bring people in. But this was my first sovereign, my first king in Progeny, and this man's taught me a lot, and things have come full circle with him. It is my honor to introduce the Arch of the Blackburns, Lucian Helcarax Blackburn.
You've done it now. You've done and made a big mistake, and I can't allow you to think you can just walk away. So turn around and face the piper you're gonna pay, 'cause the end is now. This is gonna be your judgment day.
And how you doing today?
Doing all right. How you doing, Ross?
I am doing great, thank you. I want to thank you for being on the podcast. I'm excited. This is one I've wanted to do for a while. So
That ought to be interesting.
it ought to be. And before I get to the regular questions, I'm going to ask you this. I feel that the Blackburns are misunderstood.
Okay.
I think that they have a stigma that is not necessarily how the Blackburns are.
Okay.
I've looking back, in my time where I was GCSC and you had gone and you became Blood Regent of the Blackburns under Arch Lazar.
Yeah.
Everybody was like, "Oh, these are the bad guys," and now that I've had my time as a renegade, I have come to realize that that's not really the case. And I think that the Blackburns get the brunt of that.
Right.
What is your take on that? I mean, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's a game, right? So there's good guys, there's bad guys in movies, TV shows, games, whatever, right? I think the reason why we get that is because we're not afraid to go out and fang bang, and we're not afraid to maybe speak our mind. And that sometimes doesn't sit well with a lot within the community. Years and years ago, I'd go fight with current Blood Regent Miley, and we was known to go out and just fang bang away, and that didn't sit well. So I feel we're no different than any other line that's out there. It's all family based. The HUD doesn't make us a family. We're all family. If Progeny ended today, we would still all be family together. It's just Progeny is what brings us together to start with. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does, and I agree with what you said 100%. I'm the same way when it comes to my clan. We're family, and I actually have used those exact words to my people, where I'm saying, if it ended tomorrow, we'd still be here. We'd still be hanging out.
Right.
So no, I get it exactly. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast interview here.
All right. Excuse my dogs, everyone. They will probably be barking crazy throughout this interview.
It's okay. We understand real life. We get it. So, who is Arch Lucian? Where did you come from before you joined Progeny?
Whoa. Well, I did a lot of the same that everybody else when they get in Second Life. I clubbed and this and that, and of course I did the Bloodlines thing like most everybody else has done within Progeny. Was just exploring and doing my thing. I got introduced to SL through a friend at work, and been in SL ever since.
I'm the first one to say that Second Life is just addicting. I got brought in. It's like, oh wow! You can absolutely absorb you.
Right.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Uh-huh.
So the next question, we call this "Who's Your Daddy?"
Uh-huh.
Tell us about your embrace. Tell us about the experience of your embrace during that time. I don't know how long ago that was, but
All right. Well, I was embraced by my father, and I still call him my father, Lazar Blackburn. So here's how it all kind of went down is I was going to this club that he owned, and a friend of mine was DJing it. And I was all thought I was all big and bad with my bloodlines souls and doing a vampire roar, and he gets a my I am and it starts explaining progeny to me, and I'm like, oh, that sounds definitely interesting, something I want to get into. So he introduced me to some and others and this and that. And I'm like, yep, this is me, right? I want to do this. So my embrace, there was only just a few handful of us there. I can't remember everybody that was there. It was long time ago.
mhm,
I remember I played gestures the whole time just to jack around.
not you.
Yeah, Chester Vader. I mean, you name the gesture at the time, I had it and I played it, and they was all on voice. I was a little too shy to be on voice at the time, so I didn't voice, but I did play gestures the whole time. So that was my embrace. It was quite cool. It was a good time. I enjoy every every day that I'm in SL that I can be a part of the progeny community.
I find that very interesting that you just showed me a side of you that I didn't know existed. Where
What's that?
you said you were too shy to voice. I've never known you to be shy since the day I met you. So
Well,
that's something
it
new for me.
right, it grows, it gets with you after a while. You just have to kind of bite the bullet and go with it and just do it. So,
Right?
but I mean, I've known Laz for a long, long time. Probably one of my closest friends. I mean, if him and I could ever meet in real life, that would be awesome. And like I said, I call him my SL dad. So
Gotcha.
do anything for that guy.
I've only met him a couple times, and
Uh-huh.
he seems like a great guy from what I've got to hear and talk to him a little
Absolutely.
bit. Yeah. So we'll move on to the next question. It's called First Blood.
Uh-huh.
We can talk about your first hunt or your first feeding. So
Sure.
that's up to you. Which way you want to go with that?
We can do both if you want to.
Sure. Tell us about your first feeding. Where did you go?
So first feeding, I think he put me in a call. Put Laz put me in a call, and we went to some. I honestly don't know exactly where we went right off the top of my head, but I'm sure it was some sex sim or something like that where they're all AFK and we're having a good time laughing at this and laughing at that, and I'm biting this, doing the scan and biting. I'm like, this is taking a while. He says, yeah, that's how it goes. You're young, you're young, you're young. I'm like, okay. So, I mean, and I didn't shade. I said, well, how far do I take it down to? And everybody talks like, oh, well, I shaded the first one or I bit the first one. It was just shade. I don't remember shading anything for quite a while. It just was not in me to do that. And then I made it a personal goal to myself that within my first 30 days as fledgling status to make the leaderboard on the blood board.
Mm-hmm.
So I made that. So I was very proud of myself to do that. And I
Nice.
told dad that I was gonna do that, and he says, well, good luck. And I'm like, okay. And I punched through and did it all.
Nice.
So yeah, it was a good
Nice.
time.
So let's we'll go on to the next part. It's kind of goes together. Fang banging. Tell us about your first confrontation.
So fang banging, when I was a fledgling, you could be fledgling on fledgling or fledgling on ancient or fledgling on whoever.
Mm-hmm.
I do not remember the first person I bit. Some people obviously remember that kind of stuff. I do not. I'm sure it was, I'm sure my heart was just a racing, just like it still does to this day. The adrenaline starts pumping. Did not do any slaying, because I was just a baby. It took a little while to actually slay a member of the progeny community. Did do a lot of fang banging at Bloodlines East and West until I got banned from there.
No.
Yes, yes, it was turned in and got kicked out, never to return.
Oh,
So, oh
yeah,
well.
I just recently got my first ban when I was out fang banging, so it's like, oh my gosh, that actually happens.
Right. It happens regularly. I'm probably banned from too many to even count.
So, the next question is titled "With knowledge comes great power."
Hmm?
With your current status being Arch, what have you learned about progeny and roleplay?
Well, I don't necessarily can't name just one thing. There's just so much that goes into is being an arch. My dad made it look very easy to me. When he stepped down and he wanted me to take over, I was completely honored. Um, and there's not a day that goes by that I don't learn something new, and it's not necessarily PV related. But it's dealing with people related. That's what we do on a day-to-day basis. It's how to handle this person, how to handle that person. If somebody has some type of a learning disorder of some way, they obviously it takes a little bit of time, and it takes a lot of patience to deal with those people. Um, Probably, being fair and consistent with every individual that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, or even maybe a once a month basis, just being fair. Just trying to remember what I would like that done to me, or that type of ruling, or punishment done to myself, or if I would appreciate that how the person be talking to me that way, those kind of things, if that all makes sense.
Right, it does. It does.
Okay.
So the next question we call this "My past is everything I failed to be." So
Hmm.
this is basically, do you, if, and this is an if, what
Hmm.
scars do you have from your time in progeny? Like, what would you change about your past in progeny if you could, if anything?
I don't know. I don't think I have anything. And that's not to sound arrogant or what have you. It's just I appreciate every learning opportunity I've had, every role I've ever had. I mean, way back when I started out when I was back to back up with Laz. I mean, there was no room in the house for a system recognized role. He made me sergeant of arms of all things. Um, Meant the world to me that this guy didn't even know was giving me this role within his progeny house and this and that. And I don't know. It's just res- I guess I'm kind of tongue tied. It's just I appreciate everything I've learned. I wouldn't change anything. I really wouldn't.
That's a fair answer. That's a fair answer. Um, so let's kind of backtrack just a little bit and let's talk
Uh-huh.
about your progression through progeny. We don't talk about this a lot on the podcast, but
Okay.
tell us, like, we've talked about your embrace. Let's talk about how you progressed through the system. You had a house, you had a clan,
Hmm.
now you're Arch. Kind of give us a description of how you felt during these times and how things went to be and how they came to be.
Okay. All right. So, like I said, Dad offered me, gave me that role of sergeant at arms, and then he's like, well, he called me Coors then, right? Because I took on the Lucian name later.
Hmm.
He says, Coors, you need to take a house. You need to take a house. You're good peeps. You know your stuff. I'm like, I don't want it. I don't want. And I just told him, no, no, no. I just want to be a regular old player. I just want to do my fang bang, call it good. And he goes, you'll be good at it. So finally, I met Miss Miley.
Hmm.
And Miss Miley talked me into, come on, let's do your house. take a house. You got the peeps. You got peeps that'll join you. Take them. So she helped me. Very instrumental on taking on Moore's Tour to the House. Miss Miley did. So then grew the house decent. Grew it very decent. 30 some, 40 some members. I mean, big.
Nice.
Blaz is like, you need a clan. You need a clan. I'm like, well, if I got a clan, I don't have to answer to you, you know? And this was kind of a dark time in PV. I had an arch at the time that was getting in some trouble. He knew of a clan that was dead for the most part, except for the Sovereign, and I bought my clan from this other Sovereign that was quitting PV/SL altogether. So I paid my lindens and became a Sovereign. So then went on my separate ways. I obviously couldn't be under Laz anymore, and that arch got removed from PV. Not gonna tell you who the arch was, if I'm sure everybody can put 2 and 2 and 3 and 3 together. Then I moved under Arch Darlington. It's brand new arch. I'm like, I'm gonna give her a shot, and Miley's like, okay, let's go do this. So went into Arch Darlington, learned a lot of things from Arch Darlington. A lot, right? She has her own spin on things, which I totally respect. After some time, she had offered me to be her blood regent, which really truly caught me off guard. I'm like, whoa, what am I into, right? Like, I can run my peeps, I can run my own house, or the house is underneath me. Now I got to look out for a bloodline when the arch isn't in. But I took it and learned a lot of things. And then Dad was offered Arch, and he got a hold of me and says, will you come back home? And I says, absolutely. So moved back home. I stayed blood regent under him, learned, like I said, many more things still again from him. And then the time came where he just can't give it the time and the energy he needs to put through to be an arch, and did his step down, and here I am running the Blackburn line the best I can.
And I absolutely give Lazar the utmost respect for that, because you don't see that a lot in progeny. There's obviously a couple of bloodlines out there that just don't seem to be too active, and we're not going to name names or anything, but I've seen it in the past where arches just don't want to give up. They don't want to lose that power.
Right.
And he, my hat's off to Lazar. He's like, I can't do it. Let someone else do it.
Right.
And that right there, in my opinion, deserves a lot of respect.
Yeah, it was tough for him to do that. He didn't want to, but he just knew with his health and just things going on, he just couldn't do it anymore. So he said, "Are you ready?" And I'm like, "I'm ready." And he says, "Well, I'm a phone call away. I'm a Skype message away. If you want to throw an idea by me," he goes, "I'll give you my opinion. However, it's strictly your call." He can just straight up say, "Well, Dad, go fist yourself, because I don't like that." Right? So, and quite honestly, I've had to say, "Dad, go fist yourself. I don't like that." So, if nobody knows that, that's the Blackburn motto, if you've never heard that before.
Oh, I think many are well versed in it, yes. So, here's a question that I've not gotten to ask yet, because you are the first arch I've had on the podcast.
Nice. Okay.
And the question is, what is the deal with the new Arch Conclave and the Arch Advisor role? Like, what are your thoughts right now? And you don't have to say anything you don't want to say, but if you could, what are your thoughts about the Arch Conclave in its current state?
So we do Arch Conclave and World on Sunday, every couple of Sundays, and unfortunately, can't tell you every Sunday that they are or the time, because honestly, I have real life work.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we know real life is before SL any day, all the time.
Right.
So, my blood regent Miley goes to them willingly. Obviously, goes. She lets me know what we talk about or they talk about in those meetings. The when it comes to arch advisories, that's something that's newer, very new actually, just because some lines are just so big. Instead of naming another blood region, they come up with this one, and I named my dad. He's very, very, very knowledgeable, obviously with Progeny. I feel like he hit a home run with having him in there. So the purpose is to talk about system issues or whatever issue there could be. They're held in world. And a lot of times we do clan interviews during that time. Players that have a house that are going up for a clan. So we do that at that time too. It's supposed to really focus on role play. Everybody does their role play their own set way. Obviously, some like to fang bang and some like to sip on tea. It all depends on your role play is your role play, and that's what I truly love about PV.
We'll go with one last question here.
Sure.
And this is a newer question I've been adding to the podcast here. If you could make one thing happen in Progeny, what would it be? If you could make something happen, if you could change how something's done, if you could pick one thing, what would it be?
All right. I got a couple things. I listened to your last podcast with Queen Rose, and I thought about this one today. And one, as I talked to you in World about a few days ago. But here it goes. So talk about these vampires that play Progeny that complain about being bitten. I think there should be something within their HUD that can make them go to not be bitten. And then they would use, say, potency to activate this non-bite deal, or they can't be bitten. However, then to gain more potency, I feel maybe if they laid in a coffin or something for an hour or whatever, and they would gain more potency that way, or buy potency crystals or stones or what have you.
Right, I get it. Yeah, the free way to get it is to spend time like on the Progeny sim in a cast.
Right.
Something. I like that. I like that.
Yeah. What was my other one? Oh, I think also I'd like to see the bite speed increased a little more real. Obviously, as you get older, it's pretty fast. At my age, it's pretty dang fast. But I mean, I've watched movies and this and that love watching the vampire and liking movies, and this is no joke when a vampire bites you. I would like to see something like that. I think the bite speed would be the drain or the bite of another player, or even a quick should run faster than it does.
Gotcha.
Just more real.
I got you. I like that. That. So to wrap this up, what advice would you give to somebody out there who is either new to the system or has been in the system a while and can't, they're trying to figure out their own way? Any advice for those people?
I got a few things I would probably say to those individuals. First off, it's just a game, peeps. It's just a game. It's nothing personal if somebody bites you. There's no reason to cry. There's no reason to get in their IM and call them all a bunch of nasty, dirty names. It's not disrespectful, highly disrespectful. And then it's supposed to be fun. It is supposed to be fun. It's not, that's just what it is. It's fun. So good luck. Enjoy PV.
That's the way I look at it. Well, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on the podcast with us today. It's really
Most
appreciated.
most welcome. I appreciate the time and the interview, and thank you again. All hail Blackburns.
All hail Blackburns, absolutely.
That's right.
So, thank you again, Arch Lucian, and for the entire Diabolic team. My name is Roth Nightly at Dark Raven, and until next time, may the shadows keep thee safe. You all have a good one.